Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying your day so far, and hopefully there are no problems while I'm gone for the day. Let's take a look here at why I finished notes from yesterday, and this is why was Rome been so successful. And we're gonna skip a little video clip on here, but Rome was successful because of the army. The army was all about discipline. The army was about using new methods and new weapons. We'll take a look at a video clip later on, but everything from how the army marched to how the army ran, the discipline of the army, how strict it was, made the army successful. That's why Rome could take over such a big area. Now with this army came new problems. Okay, obviously we have a new problems, and one big things is that in 107 BCE we have a guy named Gaius Marius become consul. Okay, and one of the things you need as consul is you need to have an army because you control the military. And what Marius does is he promises landless soldiers, those landless plebeians we had yesterday, that if they fight, okay, he's gonna give them land. If they fight for him and his army, they will give him land. Now, that way now, all these soldiers are now fighting for the general, the idea of getting land, and not necessarily for the Senate or for Rome. Yeah, that's your potential problem here, right? Okay. I mean, each general that comes in starts to get control of the people that way by saying, hey, we're going to conquer land and then give you land so that you are happy and you have land as a plebeian. When you think about this, a big problem here. This just means that now all of the people, the soldiers, are loyal to the general versus being loyal to Rome. Problem? Yeah, you know it. And it gets bigger when a guy named Sulla comes to command. And his name was Lucius Sulla. He's a Roman general who was replaced. He was off fighting, and he was set there. You know, the Senate started worrying he was getting too much power, what basically happens. And so he sent somebody to replace him. And instead of being replaced, Sulla decided to take his army and attack Rome, like a civil war, if you will. And he basically took everything over, made himself a dictator. And he basically started a reign of terror. That reign of terror was where he killed all people who opposed him. So anybody who was against him as a ruler, he had them and their families wiped out. One of those people was Julius Caesar, since he was related to this guy up here, Marius. Caesar was from his family line. And so Caesar actually has to run, go into hiding. So the thing about the problems of Rome here, let's list those problems down real quick. We have poverty, we have landless peasants, we have Latins with no rights, and we have generals who start using their money and their power to get control of people. A lot of problems, right? And we're going to see how this leads to the end of the Republic today. Listen to a guy here named Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar being kind of what he's most known as. There's a little quote here about Caesar on my slide here, and you see his image from a Roman coin on there as well. Now, he was originally born to a lower class patrician family. He actually lived in a plebeian neighborhood. He was from a lower class, you know. And after that civil war there, he was pretty much penniless when he had to leave. So he joined the army at 18, serves for 4 years as an officer, and starts doing the whole legal thing. So by age 30, through his military service, he becomes a senator. At 34, he gets that job of aedile, where he becomes in charge of public games. He spent tons and tons of money trying to make people happy. Now, when you're trying to make people happy, well, that gets you power. That gets you publicity. And so people loved him because he spent a lot of money on the poor. Later on, he gets bigger jobs, okay? And so he has made Pontifex Maximus, which is a job that brings a lot of power, brings a lot of money, and then he becomes the governor of Spain, what is nowadays Spain. And so he starts getting kind of running up almost from nothing and becomes more and more and more and more popular. And by 41, okay, 10 years after he becomes a senator, he becomes the Roman consul, the highest office in Rome. Now, honestly, his family spends most of their money trying to make him consul. Now, in order for him to stay consul, he makes what's called the first triumvirate. It was basically an informal alliance, okay, with two other very wealthy, popular people, okay, and trying to make sure they could stay in power. The other two people were Marcus Licinius Crassus, or just call him Crassus, is fine. He was the richest man in Rome. You also had Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, the most successful general at the time, also known as Pompey the Great. And you have Caesar's up-and-coming, very popular guy. These three guys like link up together, basically run Rome, make sure they stay in power. Now, one place that Caesar goes is a place called Gaul. Gaul is modern-day France, right here on the red, and basically gives me the opportunity to become a general. Okay, and he becomes a general, take over a whole bunch of territory, and one, gives him great wealth. Two, makes him loved by the people, and he actually writes books about his war. He writes stories about his war, publishes them in Rome, and makes his celebrity even greater. I mean, people love this guy. People worship this guy, thinking he was the greatest thing in the world. Okay, now he risked. Later on, we see Caesar start risking it all. Now, Crassus, part of his triumvirate, dies in battle. Okay, where he's fighting in Parthia, and so now we're going from a triumvirate where we have 3 people down to 2 people. The Senate is talking with Pompey. Pompey's back in Rome, and Senate's like, guys, listen, Pompey, Caesar, I don't even want to trust this guy. I mean, he's getting a lot of power in Gaul. He has his armies. Maybe we should get rid of him rather than work with him. So they decided to recall Caesar. They basically tell Caesar, come on back home, all right, to Rome, and stop fighting. Now, here's a rule, is that a general cannot cross what's called the Rubicon River with his army. That way they make sure that you're not going to have this whole Sulla issue where you bring an army with you and decide to take things over. So Caesar stops at the Rubicon River and has to decide, what am I going to do? Okay? If I cross this river, I basically declare war on Rome. And he decides to do that. His famous line is, Alia icta est, the die is cast. He takes his army across the river. You have a primary source to read on this as well. And by taking his army across that river, he basically declares war on Rome and starts civil war. So a big civil war, basically with Pompey versus Caesar. So Caesar comes into Italy with his big army, well trained, just fought all his time in Gaul, and Pompey runs away to Greece with all the different senators. So Caesar takes stuff over, and then Caesar has taken his fleet to Greece and fight Pompey. Well, even though Pompey has a bigger army, Caesar just kicks his butt, okay, crushes him, and Pompey has to send a fleet to Egypt. Now, when Pompey gets to Egypt, okay, the story gets better. Now, while Caesar was in Rome, he started printing the first coins. He was one of the first Romans to have his face on a coin. And actually, the rule before this was that only gods could be on coins. So already we see Caesar start equating himself with gods a little bit by putting his face on a coin. Figure later on. Now, while Caesar is in Rome, he was appointed as something called dictator for life. First he was dictator for 6 months, then dictator for a year, then later becomes dictator for life. And Caesar basically now rules alone, using friends and freedmen and slaves to govern, and ignores the Senate. People start thinking, was Caesar a king? Was Caesar being a god? Who knows? He also starts wearing, get this, an all-purple toga, which was only allowed by the god Jupiter. So was Caesar a god, king, those kind of things? We start questioning. Now, eventually, we see him get involved with Cleopatra. Now, Cleopatra was a queen of Egypt at 17. She ruled with her brother, okay? And Ptolemy was 12. Her brother Ptolemy was 12. Now, remember, she's not really Egyptian. She's more of a Greek than anything in Egypt. Now, what's funny is that when Pompey flees to Egypt, okay, Ptolemy decides to gain the favor of Caesar, okay? And so Ptolemy goes there. When Pompey gets to Egypt, Ptolemy orders his people to behead Pompey. Yeah, they kill Pompey, take off his head, and when Caesar comes to Egypt, they present Pompey's head to Caesar. Yeah, his best friend, I mind you, okay? Presented his head to Caesar. As a way of saying, here's how we helped you out. Big mistake, though, okay? Pompey was consul of Rome, Julius Caesar's son-in-law, because Caesar had his daughter marry Pompey. So we look at the end here, Caesar starts demanding that Pompey's assassins are killed. Ptolemy refuses, and Julius Caesar basically comes on in and has to invade and take over Egypt as well. And so we see Rome even grow some more. Eventually, to Cleopatra and Caesar start a little thing. Okay, here's a sculpture of Cleopatra. Cleopatra basically becomes Caesar's mistress. They start kind of hooking up, and Cleopatra's son is most likely Caesar's son, though he's considered an illegitimate son because he's not a Roman citizen, so he can never take over Rome. Caesar actually refused to recognize Caesarion as his son, but Cleopatra was hooking up with Julius Caesar and living with him in Rome, while Caesar was still married to his wife in Rome. So that kind of caused a little uproar in Rome as well about what he can and cannot do. One of the things that Julius Caesar has built is called the Julian Forum. Brand new forum, very open place to come in and talk and see, because he felt that the old forum was too small to deal with people that wanted to see him and talk to him, those kind of things. So he starts building all these great buildings in Rome as well. And eventually, when we get to the end here, we do what's called the Ides of March. What's really funny is that Caesar is told to beware the Ides of March. And so on the Ides of March, March 15, 44 BCE, 50 senators get together and they basically talk, and they basically start to conspire against Caesar. They're afraid that Caesar is becoming more of a king than anything. And one of the people that lead this is a person named Brutus. Brutus was a patrician family, a senator, who was actually very, very close to Caesar and saw Caesar as like a mentor. And so they conspire to have him killed. They invite him to talk about becoming, maybe taking over as a king or a dictator for life, or becoming more that dictatorship. And when he comes into the theater, okay, where he comes to, there are 50 senators that surround him. They pull daggers from their togas and start stabbing him to death. Okay, he's stabbed over 30 times. We're talking, and he actually dies at the foot of Pompey's statue where he is. So it's kind of that almost kind of that ironic kind of deal. Um, so it's kind of like after Caesar's body is cremated, there's a big, huge, massive demonstration about Caesar, and they actually make a temple for Caesar at that spot. In essence, Caesar becomes a god. All the senators have to flee, have to leave, and Caesar's former right hand man, his lieutenant when he was in the army, a guy named Mark Antony, um, kind of takes things over, and we start seeing uh, a new Trevor that starts up that we'll talk about after Thursday. So it's a new guy, Isaiah Octavian. They start conquering the armies of Brutus and Crassus and the senators, and we start seeing all these things happen here. Now, the question is, what is Caesar's lasting impact? He basically made an impact for absolute rule. Since Caesar was considered dictator for life, he was never called emperor, but dictator for life. Later on, emperors like Octavian and Antony followed his path, and we see Rome essentially ruled by emperors the whole time after this. We see the words for king comes from the word Caesar. The Russian word czar, the German word Kaiser, come from the idea of being Caesar. And one thing that Caesar did is he started practicing the idea of granting Roman citizenship to all conquered people to help get them on his side. And that actually continued as well and helped make the empire grow a lot bigger. His books he wrote were a big part of Latin literature today. He inspired a Shakespearean play, and he also changed the calendar in Rome. In fact, the month of July is named after him. So there's some short notes for you guys, kind of overview of everything. Make sure you guys are doing the readings, prepare for the discussion. It's going to take place on Thursday, and be good today, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye.